Good morning, Year 4. Our English today, we are looking at the 5 W's, which some of you began in your English intervention yesterday. So, your book by the end of the lesson should look something like this. And we are looking at working on paragraphs, okay, so forming those ideas into sentences to retell an event, so to give us the main facts and being able to summarise those key facts into a style of journalistic writing. So here's your anchor task then, going back to your intervention yesterday. So we're looking at the 5 W's. Can you spot the 5 W's in the start of this report? So it says, after a 6-month stay on the International Space Station, astronauts Tim Peake, Yuri Malenchenko and Timothy Kopra have finally returned home to Earth. Last week, British astronaut Tim Peake returned home from an incredible 6-month stay aboard the ISS, alongside his crewmates, Yuri Malenchenko and Timothy Kopra. He is the first British astronaut to ever lived on the ISS. So, can you spot the 5 W's? Pause the video and off you go. Okay then, so our 5 W's. Our who, so we've got Tim Peake, Yuri Malenchenko and Timothy Kopra. Our when, okay, so that's last week. Where, so they've been on the International Space Station. How, okay, so they have been aboard the ISS and they have just returned home to Earth. And why, so having a look. Okay, so in here it does not show our why, however, it does show our what. So they have spent 6 months on the International Space Station. So well done if you got those correct. So just as a reminder, our introductory paragraph, our orientation, or our lead paragraph, in a newspaper report, it begins with an introductory paragraph that includes the 5 W's. What happened? When did it happen? Where? Who was involved? And why did it happen? Okay, and it needs to have a short paragraph and snappy, so it briefly explains what has happened. Ensure that even if the reader stopped reading at this point, they would still know what has happened roughly. Uses the past tense, and it answers as many of these questions as it can. So who, what, where, why, when, and how. So we are going to look at writing the 5 W's paragraph for different headlines. So the goslings hatch on Zuckerman's farm. So thinking back to the chapter when the goslings first hatched. So we're thinking about our where, why, who, what, and when. So pause the video and think about how to answer each of these questions and what happened at that part in the story. Off you go. Okay, so we know it happened on the Zuckerman's farm. We know it happened because the goose was having goslings, having babies. Okay. We know it was the goose and the gander. Okay, and we know it happened, so we can say it happened last week if we were writing a newspaper article. And what happened? Okay, so the goose and gander had goslings. Okay, so now we've done that, we can write this into our paragraph. So let's start off. Okay, let's start with the front adverbial. Last week there was, in fact, let's make it even better. Last week, so we've answered our when already. Goslings were born at the Zuckerman's farm. The goose and gander, who were expecting the goslings welcomed their new babies into the world with the other farm animals by their side. Okay, so we've answered our when, we've answered our who, we've answered our where. Okay, so we have completed as many of our 5 W's as we can into one sentence. So now it is your turn. You need to think about the runt pig being rescued from an early grave. So you are doing your 5 W's. What happened, where, when, why, and who. Okay, and when you have done this, you're going to turn it into a paragraph explaining those 5 W's to your reader. Okay, so pause the video and do that now. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is I want you to watch the next part of Charlotte's Web. So this is on the website, or the QR code is here if you would rather use that. Okay, and we're going to move on our reading of Charlotte's Web to the next part of the story. So watch that little bit and then we're going to read some more of the book. So off you go. Okay, so we are on chapter 13 called Good Progress. Far into the night, while the other creatures slept, Charlotte worked on her web. First, she ripped out a few of the orb lines near the centre. She left the radial lines alone, as they were needed for support. As she worked, her 8 legs were a great help to her. So were her teeth. She loved to weave, and she was an expert at it. When she was finished ripping things out, her web looked something like this. A spider can produce several kinds of thread. She uses a dry, tough thread for foundation lines, and she uses a sticky thread for snare lines, the ones that catch and hold insects. Charlotte decided to use her dry thread for writing the new message. If I write the word terrific with sticky thread, she thought, every bug that comes along will get stuck in it and spoil the effect. Now let's see. The first letter is T. Charlotte climbed to a point at the top of the left-hand side of the web. Swinging her spinnerets into position, she attached her thread and then dropped down. As she dropped, her spinning tubes went into action and she let out thread. At the bottom, she attached the thread. This formed the upright part of the letter T. Charlotte was not satisfied, however. She climbed up and made another attachment right next to the first. Then she carried the line down so that she had a double line instead of a single line. It will show up better if I make the whole thing with double lines. She climbed back up, moved over about an inch to the left, touched her spinnerets to the web, and carried a line across to the right, forming the top of the T. She repeated this, making it double. Her 8 legs were very busy helping. Now for the E. Charlotte got so interested in her work, she began to talk to herself as though to cheer herself on. If you had been sitting quietly in the barn cellar that evening, you would have heard something like this. Now for the R. Up we go. Attach, descend, pay out line. Whoa, attach, good. Up you go. Repeat, attach, descend, pay out line. Whoa, girl. Steady now. Attach, climb, attach. Over to the right. Pay out line, attach. Now right and down and swing that loop and around. Now into the left. Attach, climb, repeat. Okay. Easy. Keep those lines together. Now then, out and down for the leg of the R. Pay out line. Whoa, attach, ascend, repeat. Good girl. And so, talking to herself, the spider worked at her difficult task. When it was completed, she felt hungry. She ate a small bug that she had been saving. Then she slept. Next morning, Wilbur arose and stood beneath the web. He breathed the morning air into his lungs. Drops of dew catching the sun made the web stand out clearly. When Lurvy arrived for breakfast, there was the handsome pig, and over him, woven neatly in block letters, was the word terrific. Another miracle. Lurvy rushed and called Mr. Zuckerman. Mr. Zuckerman rushed and called Mrs. Zuckerman. Mrs. Zuckerman ran to the phone and called the Arables. The Arables climbed into their truck and hurried over. Everybody stood at the pig pen and stared at the web and read the word over and over, while Wilbur, who really felt terrific, stood quietly swelling out his chest and swinging his snout from side to side. Terrific, breathed Zuckerman, in joyful admiration. Edith, you better phone the reporter on the Weekly Chronicle and tell him what has happened. He will want to know about this. He may want to bring a photographer. There isn't a pig in the whole state that is as terrific as our pig. The news spread. People who had journeyed to see Wilbur when he was some pig came back again to see him now that he was terrific. That afternoon, when Mr. Zuckerman went to milk the cows and clean out the tie-ups, he was still thinking about what a wondrous pig he owned. "Lurvy," he called, "there is to be no more cow manure thrown down into that pig pen. I have a terrific pig. I want that pig to have a clean, bright straw every day for his bedding. Understand?" "Yes, sir," said Lurvy. "Furthermore," said Mr. Zuckerman, "I want you to start building a crate for Wilbur. I have decided to take the pig to the county fair on September the 6th. Make the crate large and paint it green with gold letters." "What will the letters say?" asked Lurvy. "They should say Zuckerman's famous pig." So, we want to create the 5 W's for chapter 13. So we've talked about how the web said some pig, and now the web says terrific. So we want the who, what, where, when, and why of chapter 13. So this is your final task for today. So pause the video and create a plan that you would use if you were going to write this as your 5 W's. Make sure you send your work to your teacher.